We're going to talk about a couple of the little interesting things from the YCS weekend, and why no reprint? Make sure you guys smash the crap out of Choju, the Trillion Hands, so you guys don't miss out more on this content. Now, Choju is, I think, by far one of the most interesting cards that Konami has printed in a long time because it's just on summon. Get to recruit for a ritual monster and a ritual spell from your deck to your hand. Now, obviously, you can only use this effect of Choju, the Trillion Hands, once per turn, but it's the fact that on the level 7, I mean, like, that's your cost, right? Like, you're going to have to find a way to get a level 6 monster deployed on the field, but there's some really interesting things about this. Things to take note of. It is a fairy monster, which if you're doing anything with fairy interactions, as we have seen before, you could technically bend 10 into this, and then, obviously kind of branch around from that. It's something that you can revive from the graveyard. But this is something my friend brought up to me because this card doesn't actually have a reprint right now. The last printing for this was Photon Hypernova all the way back in February of 2023. So you're sitting on a 3-year-old card here that has been gaining a little bit of discussion recently, as Konami has also been exploring more and more of these ritual decks. We've been seeing just a lot more opportunity cost kind of coming around with these different options. So I guess the question becomes, is it worth it to pick up Choju? It's really going to depend on the ritual strategy that you are going for. I think the answer is it is considerably and decently worthwhile to have a copy of, but you've just got to kind of think about how your deck is going to construct itself and how your game plan is going to come together. And can you support a tribute monster? Is the fairy side of this worth it? A lot of work for a card that's worth just a couple of dollars just to be able to have a copy or two of it. I've never seen a list play more than one of this, so at least that's a saving grace. So I want to talk about Hecahands Godos. Godos, if you guys remember when Phantom Revenge actually came out, there were a couple of these Hecahand cards that were talked about as being amazing, great hand traps. And one thing has kind of led to another, and we saw our first actual list come out of the woodwork, actually choosing to play Godos as a hand trap in the side deck. Now, Godos is, as long as your opponent adds something from their deck to the hand, it's a free special summon, which is good. But the advantage to this card comes from during the opponent's main phase, you can just get to bump something out of your opponent's graveyard. But obviously, if that monster leaves the field, it gets banished, which is even worse for your opponent. Because losing access to a monster because it just gets banished when it leaves the field means that they cannot actually answer the resource themselves. There's been a lot of scenarios where you steal something from your opponent. They just be able to go battle phase attack into it and then try to, bump it back. They do not get that luxury with Godos. Now, do we think Godos is going to be a mainstay in the side deck format? I don't think so. I think a lot of the scenarios that you're going to see with Godos are very independent of the meta. And this has kind of been the first real chance that we've seen something like Godos actually kind of coming up. Because, is this card better than other hand traps? Not necessarily. There'd be a lot of situations where this could be better than Ghost Bell, depending on the matchup. But in terms of deck construction, you have to make those decisions before you sit down to even play the tournament. So more hand trap options is 100% a welcome thing in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! It's just, I'm a little bit curious to see how Godos is going to interact for a much futurized game. Now, we've got to talk about Retaliating C here. So, Retaliating C has been gaining a metric crap ton of play, and you can thank Draco Tail for this. Draco Tail was kind of the deck that everybody was like, this is a problem, I don't want to play into this, and we've been seeing things like Retaliating C becoming a direct meta counter because of Draco Tail. Now, there's a couple of major questions to think about here when you're looking at Retaliating C as a choice. If we do see something like Ketu and Rahu both go to 1 in future application, then Retaliating C kind of loses a lot of its pressure that it has, because you're usually using this in response to your opponent using one of those key special summon cards. If we see the loss of that falling out of the format due to limitations, then Retaliating C just becomes a little bit more worthless. Because, I mean, your opponent has to activate a spell card that has an effect of special summon. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, because I mean, a lot of people know that this has been a continuous segment in the meta. It's because it acts as a macrocosmo. You're choosing to play this card because it has the ability to constantly control the opponent. And that's fine. There's not, besides Vanquishal, which turning a macrocosmo on them is not exactly a good thing. If you're wasting the resources to try to macrocosmo Vanquishal, you've already lost the matchup. Like, it's not even an actual choice at this point. So I do think Retaliating C will fall out of the meta, as we do see the meta shift away from Draco Tail depending on ban list at this point, which, once again, it all comes down to how Konami wants to handle future developments within the game for this one. Now, Solemn Warning. Talk about a broken card right now. We live in a format where normal summons are incredibly important to this. And I mean, we've seen this before, right? Like, if the meta shifts away from where I can just kind of extend through all of these, particular summons, then Solemn Warning becomes more worthless as time kind of progresses, and that's fine. But in a format where, you getting a Lucius to stick on the field, and I can actually Solemn Warning blast that out of the room, well, that just helps me. What about the Vanquish Soul player if they warning their key normal summon for the turn? Because, I mean, they're not always going to have the broken other cards in their hand to kind of keep the Congo line going. That's what Solemn Warning does. Solemn Warning out of YCS Vegas was a very sided card, which tells me that we are in a format now where 2 to 3 warnings in the side deck is now a pretty normal thing to see. Now, will the meta change post Cool Tune? I think so, yes. I think, unfortunately, while Solemn Warning is still a pretty strong card, Cool Tunes can do 3 normal summons in a turn, which, if I would say, be a different story if they didn't have so many normal summons to effectively build up those boards and kind of go. But once again, as I'll say it again, it's a symptom of the meta game. If the meta is very gridlocked on relying on that key normal summon, then Warning is absolutely a broken card. If the meta shifts in a Cool Tune direction and we see, a major difference and a major, shift around on that, tends to be what happens. And then we still have Dimensional Fissure. I find it so interesting just to see how much Dimensional Fissure is able to plague this game. But much like Retaliating C, if you can establish a macrocosmo monster to be able to kind of grind through the problems that are presented within the metas, then you typically deserve it. I mean, that's just going to be how it goes. I do think there probably needs to be a restriction on this card. I do think effectively having decks like Malice be able to just banish any monster sent to the graveyard does become a little bit problematic in terms of, how things are going. And like I said, there has to become a give and take here with the meta. Can we continuously have Dimensional Fissure be a problem, or is Dimensional Fissure once again a symptom of the current meta? I do think when Cool Tunes do come around, it might be still a very strong card. I don't know enough about Cool Tunes if they need their graveyard or not for those interactions, but I'm going to take a leap here and I'm going to say they probably do want their graveyard. It's probably going to be an important interaction for them to have, just so they can kind of make sure they can leap through and get to everything that they kind of need to. So what do you guys think about the hot tech choices out of the block at the moment? Because there's some interesting ones. So please, comment down below what you guys think. I'll see your beautiful faces back here in a day, guys. Patrons, thank you. love.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.